Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to call the October 21st meeting of the Common Council to order. I will ask our clerk to call the roll to determine a quorum.
Alderperson Weigel.
Here.
Barzak.
Here.
Chaplesky.
Here.
Haas.
Here.
Lysick.
Here.
May.
Here.
Probst.
Here.
Reinke.
Here.
Rote.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
10 present, none excused.
We have a quorum. We ask that you all stand and join us. Alderman Marty Weigel will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have two items up for public hearing this evening. I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 1.
A hearing on an ordinance to create Section 1.060 of the revised municipal code relating to user fees for residential private property sanitary inflow and infiltration reduction program.
Thank you. Before I turn things over to Mr. Birch, just so you're all aware of the format this evening, he's going to do a presentation, and then we're going to take questions or comments from the Common Council. And then after that, we're going to take questions or comments from the audience. And I'm going to wager my annual salary that some of you are here to talk about this public hearing. You can sign in where that little pink flag is on the clipboard, either before or after your comments. We ask that you give us your name and address for our record before your comments. And then we will do our best to answer your questions. We may ask to touch base with you during our recess if it gets into more detail. But that's what we're going to operate under this evening. So with that being said, I will turn things over to Joe Birch from our engineering department.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the public hearing for the Residential Private Property Sanitary Infiltration Reduction Fund, which we could refer to as the Private Sanitary Fund. The purpose of this fund is to reduce the sanitary flows during wet weather. West Allis is required to reduce the excess flows caused from clear water entering the sanitary system through the flow limits, or we have to reduce to the flow limits set by MMSD. This program would target the leakiest pipes, as I'll show you in the, later in the presentation. We have some tests done on the laterals that show they leak quite a bit. We have 180 miles of mainline sewer in the city. We inspect them on a regular basis every 8 years. We send a camera through them. And the defects we repair annually. So they are fairly well maintained. In 2005, there was a lawsuit from the state of Wisconsin, sued MMSD and all the 28 communities that flow to MMSD, including West Allis. And to resolve that, we had to set flow limits. All the municipalities agreed to that. West Allis currently exceeds the flow limits in approximately 25% of the city. This doubled this year, so we expect to see more areas coming into that non-compliance with the better metering going in, and the pipes are aging. This program is looking at the sanitary lateral from the connection at the main up to a point about 6 feet from the house. The reason for that 6 feet is that's a safe distance to actually do construction that won't impact your foundation. We did have some pilot projects. One of the pilot projects, we lined approximately 90 laterals in an area where we had a history of very excessive basement backups. Since that's been done, we've seen a dramatic flow reduction. So we know that this process works pretty well in our area. This is an example of what we see when we televise a lateral. The joint is all broken, roots are coming in, you can see a hole beginning in here. This is that same pipe after it's lined. Everything is sealed up, no more leaks. This leakage test was done in the Milwaukee area. I believe it was in the city of Wauwatosa. The dye water testing is where they take dyed water, saturate the yard over the lateral. So they saturate the ground for hours. That water soaking into the ground gets to the lateral. They send a camera down the line and they see what's happening. This is the main sewer. It's brand new. They connected back to the old pipes. And you can see the amount of water pouring in just from water passing down over it. There's been similar results throughout the United States where they're having kind of the same problems that we are. This area of problems is not limited to where we're going over our flow limits. These are the sewer problems we had in the 2009 rain. So everybody that's having problems is eligible to have their lateral rehabbed in this program. The options that we have to look at for handling these high flows, if we stay in the public system, we have to look at increasing our public sewer so that it can accommodate the additional flow and we don't overflow. Then we'd have to increase the treatment or storage of all that flow. It's a very costly option. If we go to reduce flows by removing it from the leakiest laterals, that seems to be the most cost-effective, and it has the added benefit of rehabbing old laterals. So although the program is about lowering the flows, the real benefit some people will see is that they get their lateral rehabbed. Your chances of a lateral failure, the manufacturers claim 75 to 100-year lifespan. Almost all of the laterals are clay tile in this city. And some of them look very good, some of them don't. We have about 11,000 of the 17,000 that are 75 years old or older. And while the age, you can't determine the condition by the age, but we've seen some 60-year-old pipes with failures, and we've seen 100-year-old pipes that look brand new. So you really have to have an inspection to determine the real condition of that pipe. If you wonder when your lateral will be fixed or looked at, our goal is to do 170 a year. There's 17,000 laterals. That's a 100-year cycle. So the chances of you having a special assessment for a repair or a rehabilitation is 1 in 100, 1% per year. Inspections are property owner's responsibility. If you want your lateral done and you want us to put it on the list, you need to bring in an inspection. An inspection is just you hire a pipe cleaning company or a plumber. They can send a camera down your pipe. It's probably a very good idea if you're on a regular cleaning program. If you have to have roots cleaned out every year or every other year, the next time you have it cleaned out, have it televised. You can bring that in. Roots in the laterals are a sign that it is leaking. And it would qualify. We would put it on the list to be rehabbed. We may end up having to prioritize these rehabilitations. If we've got 500 lateral inspections and all of them are qualified to be repaired, we're only budgeting to do 170 a year. So we would spread that over multiple years. And by doing that, we would look at every inspection. We have staff that's trained and certified in pipe condition assessment, and they would pick out the worst ones, the ones that are possible, have the most possibility of collapsing or causing a backup into the home. And the laterals must be in need of rehabilitation before they're put on a schedule. We may see some that get inspected that don't look too bad. We can't afford to fix the pretty good laterals. We got to fix the bad ones. So they would be put on a waiting list for quite a while. How the program will work, this is a new program, so we don't know exactly how it's going to work, but we expect that in the beginning there will be a lot of people that have regular maintenance on their lateral and they want to have it rehabilitated so they don't have to have it cleaned every year or every other year. So they'll bring in inspections. We'll look at it. If it needs to be done, we'll put it on the schedule. And that's where it gets prioritized, scheduled, and then we will let a private contractor by public bid to do the rehabilitations. If the demand is below 170, we may go into areas where we know we have sewer issues, and we want to lower the flow in that area. And so in these targeted areas, what we would do, we would send out a letter asking for volunteers. So we would want people to volunteer to have their lateral inspected and rehabbed if it needed it. Before you have any work done on your lateral, you would have to sign an agreement just saying you want that work done and you're willing to pay that special assessment. So you'll never have us telling you you have to have your lateral repaired, and we won't be telling you you have to have it inspected. For emergency repairs, before the property owner hires a contractor, the step in here would be if you're experiencing a sewer backup in your basement, the first thing you should do is call the city Public Works Department, find out if the main sewer is backing up. Because if the main sewer is backing up, there's nothing you can do on your end that would clear that up. We have to clear it in our end. Once you find out the main is clear, you can hire a plumber or a pipe cleaning company, come in and try to clear that blockage. If the blockage cannot be cleared and we determine it's failed, which is pretty easy to do, they usually hit clay and things like that that's not supposed to be in the pipe. That information will be given to the city engineer, and the city engineer will decide if their estimate to fix it is within reason from what we've seen in the past. We do reserve the right to get additional estimates if that estimate looks too high. Engineering staff inspects the repair, and for this repair, your bill would be $3,000, which you would have agreed to up front before we dug. The program benefits, the biggest thing is it reduces the flow, which reduces the risk of backups, and it reduces the chance of having to dump sewer in Lake Michigan. This also works towards the city's reduction requirements or flow requirements, and it's the least expensive way to do it by attacking the leakiest pipes. This can reduce the future cost. If we had to expand our system to accommodate this flow, the cost for expanding the system would be extremely expensive. This provides help to rehabilitate aging, leaky sanitary laterals, which this is really the first time in history that sewer pipes are reaching their life expectancy and they're starting to fail. And there was never really a plan for that from the beginning. So this does address that, and it does give you the chance to have something fixed at a more reasonable rate. By providing these lateral rehabs, we hope that we limit the number of failures. In the event of a failure, this helps you greatly with the price of a failure. Our $3,000 special assessment is a pretty fair deal when you compare that the average lateral repair is around $10,000. Cost of the program, it's $10 a quarter. So most people will just pay that $10 a quarter. Since only 1% get affected by the rehab or repair, most people will just be paying this $10. If you have a problem and you choose to have the work done, you have the special assessment that you have to pay. So these are, again, only if you agree, you sign the agreement saying you're willing to pay that. We're taking some responsibility for the lateral structurally, and the purpose is to get the water out, but the homeowner's responsibilities still are for inspection of their own lateral. You have to remove blockages. If you have a blockage, you call a plumber, you have it removed. The city doesn't pay for that. If you have a backup, caused by your failure of your lateral or a blockage in the lateral, we do not clean that up. It's still yours to clean up. And if you have repair work done, you have the responsibility to pay that special assessment. So next, after this, we're still going to take comments until a final decision is made, which will be at least about a month. So, and these you can send emails or you can call this number. It still will be set up to take comments or questions. After this, the program goes to a joint committee meeting for Administration and Finance and Board of Public Works, and then to the full council for final decision, which that won't be happening tonight. And at this time, I would take any comments or questions from the council.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. Are there any questions or comments from the Common Council on this item?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Barzak?
I'm Alderman Barzak. I'm Chairman of Public Works, and Vince Vitale's Chairman of Finance. We will not be acting on this tonight. Want to make that clear. We have had many meetings on this. This is unprecedented that we would set out a public hearing like we did to the entire city. So we are looking for your comments, and that's why we did what we did. Because there's not one of us has made up our mind on this. It's a tough decision. Every meeting we've had on it, we've gone back and forth. We're looking at pros, we're looking at the cons, and it's an extremely tough decision. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. So please don't get up here and say, you already made your mind up, this is going to happen or it's not going to happen. That is probably the furthest thing from the truth. We have a lot more discussion that we're still going to have to need with this, and we'll go forward from there. So we are looking forward to your comments, and again, we'll not be acting on it tonight. I'm not even sure it'll be acted on within a month. But somewhere down the line, we will have to make some type of decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Barzak. I just wanted to mention, too, there are 5 or 6 seats up front here if anybody in the back wants to occupy them.
And just one more, we do have a microphone that's portable. If somebody can't make it to the stand up by the podiums, I believe Vince has it, or it's already laying
in the
down there.
audience.
Oh, okay, it's already there, so thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the Common Council on this item?
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Weigel?
I just wanted an update from the engineering staff. Joe, 28 communities in the sewerage district. Are all the other communities looking? No one has a program like this yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Nobody has the program.
And is all the other city engineers watching us on TV tonight?
I believe there's a couple communities that are very interested in what happens here tonight.
Okay. And in the state of Wisconsin, anything like
The
this?
state of Wisconsin, Racine has a similar program for different reasons. They charge $50 a year for lining laterals. They do that when they pave the streets.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Weigel. Are there any other questions from the Common Council?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Probst?
Joe, is this going to be a program that if it is adopted, if this is something that we choose to positively act on in the future, is this going to be a program that homeowners can opt in and opt out of?
No, this would be, if it's voted on, it would be everybody's in. That's the only way that it would really work.
Are there any other questions from the Common Council?
Mayor Devine,
Alderman May?
just a comment. First of all, I think Gary Alderman Barzak did a great job explaining that we as a council really haven't made up our minds on this, and this was a special thing that we mailed out to all the residents. I'll pull the microphone closer. Does everybody hear me? Thank you. What I was saying was that I think Gary explained things very well, that we have not made our minds up on this, that we did a special hearing. This wasn't something that we were mandated to do. This is something we wanted to do because we need to hear your questions. So with that, I'm not going to ask any specific questions of staff right now. I think I've sent you loads of emails. We've had lots of discussion in committee. What I really want to do is I want to spend our time here listening to the questions and the comments from the constituents. I just want everyone to know that just because I'm quiet on those questions right now, it's not because I don't have them, it's because I want to hear from all of you who are here tonight. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the Common Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Barzak?
Just one more point of order. We are not allowed to have dialogue back and forth. So we make our comments. Once you start, that time is yours, and we will sit here until everybody has asked their questions. But we cannot get into dialogue. After that's all done, we have a small part of agenda to take care of. We break for recess, and at that time, you want to come up and talk to us individually, and then, we can answer questions. But it is not a time for dialogue. It's a time to hear from you. So when we don't answer something, the city engineer can answer them, but we cannot. So just let you know that it's not a time for dialogue.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the Common Council?
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Reinke.
we are looking for your comments, so please feel free to come up to the podium and state how you're feeling. We are looking forward to hearing from you. Also, a concern was the $10 fee, $40 for the whole year. I have to be upfront. From what I understand, in the future, that fee could change. So just so you're aware, that this is tentatively the fee that we are starting out with, and we hope to keep this fee. But it depends on the number of laterals that will have to be worked on. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, we'll try to keep it under
Right.
control.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Reinke. Are there any other comments from the Common Council? Okay, we will now turn to comments or questions from the audience. Like I said earlier, we have the microphone up here. We ask that you give us your name and address for our official record before your comments and sign in either before or after your comments. Is there anybody that wishes to address the council? They may approach the microphone. We have one gentleman with a handheld. You can start if you want.
Todd Rebo, 2194 South 77th Street. I have a couple comments in regards to this. I noticed you brought up voluntary. Having the work done is voluntary,
That's correct.
okay. But if this thing passes, the $10 quarterly, the $40 annually, that's not voluntary. We're going to all have that applied to us, every single citizen in the city of West Allis.
That's correct.
Now, upon, I had one lady next to me here who had mentioned that if she would sell her house, is that bill apply towards like the tax base of that property to the new buyer?
Well, the $10 fee is just an ongoing fee. There's no account for each property for that. If you had a special assessment and it wasn't fully paid off, that would be paid during the sale. And how you negotiate that, whether it goes to the new owner or the current owner, that would be up to you. But
Okay.
that's typical to all the special assessments we have for all the other capital improvement projects.
Okay. Now, I hear a lot of concern about water being put into the system by the private properties. Now, we have a reverse situation. Grant Street was redone between 76th Street and 84th Street last year. And upon that work being done, my mother, who lives on the corner of 77th and Grant, started to have water backing up every time we had severe rain. About every 3 months, she had to have cleaner come in there and go through the system, snake it out, what have you. At that time, nothing was found as far as roots or anything. It was clear water that was coming up into her basement. She had never had water in her basement before. So upon the redoing of Grant Street, apparently there is a problem with the connection somewhere or the outflow where it's connected down the road somewhere, because she is the first one in line with from Grant Street going up 77th Street. She's the first pipe that would be coming there, and that's where she's getting this clear water coming up from. So there's a backup going on out there. And we've talked about it before, and we're not getting any satisfied result here because, like I said, it's coming out clean on the reports.
Right, well, I didn't hear from you about getting a inspection of that lateral. We inspected it from our side, and the connection looked good. So I would ask that you have that inspected. If it is a problem caused by the construction, we would take care of that. If it's another problem in there, you want to know what it is anyway, so the inspection would be a good way to go on that.
Well, the last time we had it done, which was last month, and they ran through the pipe, the people who did the work, they said right out, they said there's no sense in running a camera through there because everything's clean. They could feel it in, when they're doing the work in that. They said there's no resistance whatsoever, and they're actually running their line, their snake beyond the private lateral in that and right into the city main. And it isn't until they get past that city main somewhere in there that all of a sudden the water starts flowing again. So it's not even in her lateral. It's backing up out there in the street somewhere.
Well, we're going to have to monitor that during a rain and see if we can figure out if there's something going on in the main system or if it's not.
Because running that camera through, like you suggested, that's fine if you got a problem there, but otherwise that's a $300 bill for the resident.
Well, if you found a problem that was caused by the construction, we would pay for that.
All right?
If you didn't, at least you would know where your lateral needs to be repaired, which could reduce the cost of your repair.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else wishes to speak, they can go up to the microphone. You can line up a little if you want and sign up in order you want to speak.
Hi, my name is Amos, M-I-E-T-Z, 1556 South 76th Street. I look at the top of this thing and it tells me that we're going to reduce clear water in our sanitary sewers and lower flows, which evidently is a good thing, but how many illegal sump pump connections and how many rain gutters can we pull out and reduce flows tremendously at no particular expense to the citizenry here? You're talking, with 17,000 houses, you're talking $680,000 a year that you're going to collect into eternity. And I see an insurance policy here with a $1,500 or a $3,000 deductible. Now, in the city of Milwaukee, you tell these people that if you have absolute lateral failure, you're going to have a $4,000 or a $10,000 bill, but that doesn't happen too often. In the city of Milwaukee, the insurance company collected $1,140,000 and paid out $220,000, and the only claim that they paid was for total lateral collapse. So the city of Milwaukee said, you're hosing our citizens, and suddenly they figured out that they could insure all these lines for $76 a year, which you have nothing out of pocket. Now you want me to call the Roto-Rooter guy up and pay him $1.50 to snake my sewer, and then another $300 for a camera and get it on a secure digital source and show it to you so you can make an assessment if you're going to rehabilitate my lateral or not. Well, my homeowner's insurance pays for what's inside my foundation, and there's any number of ways, from excavating to bursting pipes to relining, that I can fix the lateral in the unlikely event that that happens. In the city of Madison, they have 12 lateral failures a year, and until Walker changed the statute in 2011 in the budget, where municipalities can no longer do construction work on private property, the water utility did the repair, put it on the person's bill as a special assessment, and they capped it at $4,400. Now, they got $415 million budgeted from 2013 to 2018 in an MMSD budget for capital projects, including inflow and infiltration. How many grant dollars has the city of Milwaukee or WESTALLIE secured? The city of Milwaukee has secured a grant to do several hundred houses in 2013. How many dollars has the city of WESTALLIE secured? And when we pick all this low-hanging fruit, then come and talk to me about picking my pocket for another $40 a year, making it even less affordable to live here. I mean, I've got people living in some of my properties that get their food in the pantries. They don't have the capacity to spend any more money to be in the city of WESTALLIE. So I think this provision deserves an early death and a little more thought and reflection before we take $680,000 for questionable benefit. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask that we don't.
Well, I could
Ladies and
have a-
gentlemen, sorry, Joe, I'm going to ask that we don't applause tonight. We don't allow celebratory, this is a really dull place. We don't allow clapping, sorry.
I would like to...
Welcome to opinions, but we don't allow demonstrations due to previous interruptions to our meetings and things like that. So please work with us on that one.
I would like to clarify something about the difference of the insurance policies and what this is. This is a policy that would go directly after the leaky pipes. That's what we're trying to do, is reduce the flow. If you insure your pipe and you have a problem, they'll fix that one problem. They might replace 6 feet of your pipe, but you still got 50 feet of bad pipe. So you could have a failure, 5 years later, the same thing. This will rehabilitate the whole pipe, stop the leaking, and lower the flow.
My name is Charles Mitchell, 1532 South 83rd Street. Just want to make a comment. I know that you're saying this is only $40, but it could raise in the future. I'm raising 4 kids at home, and this is basically a failing economy, and employers don't want to pay people what they're worth anymore, and it's very difficult to make a dollar, and all the city of West Allis wants to do is raise taxes and just add another thing on to the bill that I have to pay, and everything else is going up, so it's just, this is another bill that has to go up in my pocket, and it's $10 right now a quarter, but who said it's not going to be $20 or $30 in the future? So, I mean, I just ask you guys to consider the fact that there's people here that are struggling to make a dollar, and, there's some people here that are on retirement, and they don't have the money, too, to put into another $10 a quarter either. So just consider the fact that some of us here are working hard for our money and don't have the income, and it's difficult for us to come up with this money, and then let alone that we get this repaired and have other things that we have to do. I mean, like you said in your letter, these houses are 100 years old. We've got windows that we have to replace on our house, and that's going to be an added cost as well. So just take into consideration the people that we're dealing with in West Allis, that, the economy is not as good as it used to be, and it's not getting any better. So just take that into consideration, please.
Thank you.
I'm Brad Freeberg, 1127 South 115th. First, I've got a question about the lawsuit. Is the prime mover in this thing the sewage being dumped into Lake Michigan? Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay. Well, in that case, it seems to me that given that downtown Milwaukee and Shorewood combines sanitary sewage with the rainwater by design of their systems, that should be taken care of first, and it's not being taken care of. When they do sewer work, they keep them together. It's a combined system. So that's, I would say, probably the prime mover in that problem. And they need to deal with that before they come after us.
Well, the combined system is allowed to overflow into the lake. The separated system is not.
But when our sewage gets down there, it's affected by the rainwater that goes in there.
They can divert the combined system away from the separated.
Do these happen because of backups that begin down there?
No, these, in West Allis, our sewers are inundated in themselves. So we have times in the past where we've had to have pumps out there pumping the sewers out to try to avoid the basement backups. So it's enough water to back up our sewers within the city. And with all of the leaking going to MMSD's system, it does overwhelm them occasionally.
When someone does experience a backup, percentage-wise, what is it, would you say is the problem? Their own lateral or something down that the lateral feeds into on the street, or?
Well, I mean, the most common backup is when the lateral is blocked. You know, that doesn't relate to any rain event. But when we have these massive rains like we had in 2008, 9, and 10, the sewers are actually surcharged and backing up. They can't handle that flow. They don't stop flowing. There's just so much water that it backs up like a funnel. And until it can all get through and goes down, it will back up into basements.
Okay. Now, from your numbers that you had up there, I'm almost done. From your numbers that you had up there, it looks like a pretty good deal, except that a lot of people are going to look at this like a wealth transfer from people that probably aren't going to have a problem to people who will. So I just want to leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Corinne Grappeton, 1503 South 75th Street, the corner house right down the corner on 75th and Orchard. In the last 30 years, I have had 3 sewer backups. I'm talking about massive. One that would cost between $25,000 and $30,000 worth of damage because I decorate for every holiday. So a lot of my junk was destroyed because of raw sewage, okay? All right, that's number 1. Number 2, $10 to me means nothing, okay? And I retired after 39 years. So when you're talking about $40 a year compared to getting your lateral fixed for $3 grand, when it does go back up or it's broken or whatever, is nothing, all right? Regardless of whether you think it's gonna happen today, 6 months from now, or a year from now, that's absolutely nothing in my eyes. You wanna charge me $50, I'll pay it, I don't care, just for that safe keeping in my mind that if this happens, I have something to fall back on. The city of West Allis is gonna cover my butt to help me out with my lateral, if that's the case, all right? 3, I had to have sewer work done, and I don't know what they did, the plumbing company, but it cost me something like $7 grand, all right? That was my portion because the tree that's in front of my house broke through that pipe in front of my house, and it busted that pipe, and I had to pay that $6 grand, 7, 8, whatever it was, because it was on this side of a T-pipe or something like that. If it would have broke on that side of that T-pipe, then the city of West Allis would have paid for it. But with my luck, obviously it broke on this side of that T-pipe, and I ended up paying all the big bucks, all right? So as far as covering me, $40 means nothing to me, and I'm retired after 39 years, and I don't make a lot of money. But when you compare $40 to $3 grand that it might cost you to have that pipe fixed, if it needs to be fixed, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charles Blank. I have an 810 South 58th Street. I don't like this idea that they're going to put a $40 charge on my water bill every month. We already pay water runoff. I don't know why they don't take that off our bill if I get our sewers fixed. I think the city could do a better job with helping the people that got problems with their sewer laterals. Instead of sticking it to everybody in the city, why don't they make a loan to the people, a long-term loan that any person, it doesn't matter what their income is, that they could get a loan to have their sewer lateral fixed, instead of everybody in the city paying for everybody's lateral for eternity and can go up the cost, as you said yourself. I think that's a better idea than sticking it to everybody around and jacking it up, or getting rid of the water runoff on our water bill, and have that go towards fixing the laterals. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hi, Alan Marsh at 2467 South 76th Street. I've owned my property since 2002, so it's been like 12 years. At first I paid $60 a quarter, and now I'm up to $130. So that's like 120% in those 12 years, or 10% a year. I'm on a fixed income. I'm not working. I'm trying to get a job, but it is what it is. And I'm sure a lot of other people out here are on fixed incomes too. It's getting ridiculous. How about looking at maybe all the departments, maybe like Scott Walker's done or whatever, and you can take 1% off of their budget for this, you know. I do not approve of this $10 per quarter raise. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Morris, 2001 South 105th Street, where I have lived for the last 51 years. I also own a duplex down in the East End at 60th and Orchard, which I just paid a $280 water bill for. But I have tenants that garden, and they use the wash machine, and so that's part of the expense of being a landlord. My neighbor down on the other end of 105th and Beecher, spent $8,000 last summer out of his own pocket because of a lateral failure. I will gladly pay this $80 a year on 2 properties. I'm living on Social Security, and I'm living on some dividends, and I'm living on rental income. Technically, I am poor. But you invest in the community. We take care of each other. $40 a year is darn cheap insurance for someone on a fixed income.
Thank you.
My name is Ronald Johnston, and I live at 10184 West Harrison Avenue in West Dallas. This spring, we had your people come out to clean the piping out on the street. They used high-pressure water hoses, and this is the first time in 50 years that we've lived there that the water came up the pipes. Now, something's got to be done when you're cleaning the pipes, that you're not using 150 pounds of pressure on these pipes. These are laterals. They weren't constructed for high pressure. And I would appreciate it very much. As far as paying the $40 won't bother me a bit. But let's get some people in to do the cleaning. He's trying to do a whole block on his higher pressure in cleaning the pipes. So the first guy on the block gets clobbered with water coming up the drain. We got a lot of drain holes. He can go halfway up the block and with lower pressure and do just as effective job. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Johanna Dom. I live at 1630 South 66. First of all, the $40 fee is not a big concern of mine, and I'm actually very thankful that the City of West Dallas is looking into this, because preventative medicine is much less costly than having to deal with these line failures. My question for maybe the city engineer can answer is, it was mentioned that MMSD charges us a fee for the water that basically we overflow or send to them. So with this reduction in the clear water, will our fees go down, and how will those lowered fees that we have to pay to MMSD be brought back into this project, or back to the residents as a whole?
Well, MMSD charges us for the treatment of the sewage. So if we lower the volume, we pay less.
Okay. So what are we paying now, and what is our expected hopeful reduction?
I'm not sure of that.
Oh.
And I don't think that you would see such a drastic reduction that everyone would see several dollars fall off their bill.
No,
So, not immediately. But if you let it go and we didn't do anything about this, they definitely wouldn't be going down. So
with the savings that we hopefully will see, where are those savings going to be applied?
I think the savings that we'll see is in areas where we won't have to increase spending to do more work. We're required to lower the flows. The laterals are the leakiest pipes, so they're the most efficient. If we don't do it on laterals, we got to go look for another place to do something. We can't do nothing. So it would be much more expensive to be working on the public system to try to meet those flow limits.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Joe Tishoni, 1321 and 1323 South 76th Street. I just have a couple of things that I'd like to have clarified, I guess. One is, you cited heavy rains from 2009 and 2010. Well, it is 2014. Is this still a concern, given that you're citing rain from 2009 and 2010? Or is this something that is essentially meant to fix the problems of the deep tunnel that is not functioning as it should, and only happening because there's some sort of what sounds like a legal agreement? From what you'd said, it sounded as though that there was some sort of an agreement made that forces us to reduce these overflows, as you call them?
Yes. Well, the agreement was to set a reasonable flow limit. Obviously, some of the older communities have trouble meeting that, but we are required to reduce the flows. We're not set to a date that we have to meet to be down to that level. They could do that. They could tell us we got to fix it in 5 years or 10 years. That would be pretty devastating financially if they did that.
Devastating to
everybody who had to pay for all that work to be done in that short a period of time.
Outside of West Dallas, is that what you're saying?
No,
or
this
West
would be
Dallas
within West Dallas. Everything for this is within West Dallas. Our flows are high. We measured one basin at 75 times the flow during rain than it is normal. So if that's happening everywhere, our sewers can't handle that. So during the rains, like you said, it's been a while since we had a big rain, but in 2009 we had hundreds of backups. So that's the time when you see that you have weaknesses in your system.
What percentage of the backups would you say are caused by rain?
During the rain events?
What percentage are caused by rain?
Well, during the rain events, I would say probably 90% at least are caused by that rain, not a problem in a lateral.
Outside of having heavy rain, how many failures are we having in the city of West Dallas?
How many failures? On an average year, we have approximately 20 collapsed laterals. It varies. We had some years with 10, some years with 30.
Okay, so you're suggesting that we rehabilitate 170 laterals a year based upon the idea that we have 20 or 30 collapsed laterals in a year?
No, it's not about the collapsed laterals. It's about getting the water out of the system. We need to do a decent amount of, the laterals are meant to last 100 years. If we're doing 170, that is 1%. It'll take us 100 years to get through the city.
Okay. You said this is also not a fixed cost, correct? This is not a cost that cannot go up.
It could go up if the council would have to vote on that in the future, but we're going to try to keep it at this. What we see right now with the new technology and the amount of work coming up in this field, we're seeing the prices drop. So we're hoping that the cost of these rehabs is going to be going down.
Does that also mean that if prices for these rehab projects go down, that this $10 fee gets reduced?
It would be looked at both ways. It can be looked at, if we have excess money building up in there, we reduce the fee. So.
What guarantee do we have as city residents that this money does not be used for anything other than this project?
That's the purpose of having this in its own little fund.
Okay,
Everything that
but-
goes in goes out to fund these projects on private property.
Sure. Well, as someone that keeps a checkbook and pays for bills, sometimes there are other bills that have to wait, right? So my question is, what guarantees do we have as city residents that this money, if something else were to come up, and we're only worried about 20 collapsed laterals in a given year, that this money is not going to be spent elsewhere? That's my concern.
Number one, we're not concerned about those 20 laterals that fail a year.
I understand that.
We're trying to get the water out of the system. That's the main purpose of this.
You've made a big deal
If-
of the $3,000 emergency repair or the $1,500 rehabilitation. So I guess my question, again, is what guarantee do we have as city residents that this money is not spent elsewhere?
This is the same as our other utilities then. We can't use water utility money for anything but water. Can't use the sanitary public money for anything but the sanitary public mains.
So you're telling me that this project, the money that goes into this project is only spent on this project and will never be spent anywhere else?
Well, that's my understanding, so I'm
Okay. And one last question. The laterals that we have within our property, those are our responsibility, correct? So if it's my responsibility, why do I need you guys to do my job, to keep up my property?
Again, it goes back to, it's not about the lateral itself. We need to reduce the flows. Those are the leakiest pipes. That's the best place to spend our money to fix something. A side benefit of that is that the homeowner gets a lateral rehabilitation.
What it sounds like to me is that what is my responsibility also is the cheapest possible way for you guys to address a much more significant problem.
When you say us, you mean the city, which means everybody in here is the city.
Right.
So it means that it's the cheapest way for everybody in West Dallas to handle this problem. Yes, that's true.
Well, regardless of how you put that, what I'm saying is the problem is the sewage system. You're saying the cheapest possible way to address it is on my private property.
We're saying that the public system has been well maintained for many, many years. For the most part, the private lines are totally ignored unless you had a problem. So you may have a 80-year-old line that you've never had it checked for anything because it's never backed up, it's never done anything wrong. So you don't know that it's leaking. It doesn't matter to the homeowner that it's leaking because it's not backing up. So what are the chances that you're going to go in and rehabilitate that line on your own?
If I'm not having a problem, I'm
Right.
not going to address it.
But the city is having a problem with too much water, so we need to go after a leaky lateral. So if we don't have a program that offers an incentive to have your lateral rehabbed, we won't get it done.
You're offering me the incentive to pay more to address the lateral.
Well, we're setting up a program where you will pay for your lateral over a 100-year span.
Okay, given that my life expectancy is probably not going to get there, and I'm probably not going to own that property until I die.
Right.
I don't necessarily think the incentive is there. That's my personal opinion. I see what you're trying to do, but I think it's a very poor choice to add another $40 a year to our bill to try and address a problem that should have been addressed before by MMSD, and it's not something that I'm happy about. That's my opinion. So when you tell me that you want to come onto my private property to address a lateral or rehabilitate a lateral, And I've gladly incentivized, I guess, to do so because I'm paying you an extra $10 a quarter. That's a tough pill to swallow amongst all the other things. My property is on 76th Street, as I said before. You're repaving my road right now. You mentioned that that they do it in Racine when they repave the roads, right?
They charge more than $40.
Well, that's fantastic. But again, this is something that could have been addressed as well when you look at these major projects. When my biggest issue as well with this project on 76th Street is that we got nothing from State Fair. Zero. You count the cars, you count the trucks, you count the county buses, you count everything that rolls across that road, and yet anyone on 76th Street not only has to pay their property taxes, but also pay their special assessment. I don't live on 63rd, where no one drives down. So you're asking me to pony up even more after I've already had to pony up for this project here. And it's another tough pill to swallow. And I hope, as you guys have said tonight, that you have an open mind. I hope you keep that mind open, because there's a lot of people here that have something to say, and I'm sure there's a lot more of it that's going to reflect the same view that I brought to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Glenn Norton. I live at 1026 South 111th Street. And I guess I'm going to respectfully disagree with my neighbor who just spoke here. I think in general it's a good proposal. I think $40 a year, I think that's less than $4 a month. I think that's good peace of mind, quite frankly. And like it or not, we are going to have to deal with aging sewer laterals as we go out into the future. That money's going to have to come from somewhere. You know, if somebody's on a fixed income, their bungalow on the east side that was built in 1921, if that lateral collapses, they can't afford it. Well, I'm guessing it's the city and the taxpayers that are going to have to find a resolution for that if they don't have it. Having said all that, I do have a couple of questions. I guess I get where you don't want to impede on the foundation, but the lateral obviously goes from the plumbing stack all the way out to the street, and I'm assuming that can leak at any point. So if you're replacing or lining only from 6 feet, do we know how much flowage are we really solving the problem sufficiently? That'd be one question. And I don't know if you have a comment on that. Or
From our tests, we've seen that it'll reduce, if not eliminate, most of that flow. For what is under the building, that water is probably going to get into your foundation drains and go out faster. So it should get rid of most of the water. So you're right. We can't go into the house with this project. So.
Okay. So and that's the same thing like for let's say if heaven forbid a collapse happens and let's say it's 5.5 feet from the foundation.
The 6 feet was an arbitrary measurement just to stay safely away from the foundation.
Okay.
And typically if you're putting a rehabilitation and it's a cured in place liner, the contractor would need to put a clean out outside the house so that he can watch the new pipe come in. At the time you're having that done, you could arrange for them to do that from the clean out in your basement if you choose. So then you would get it lined to that clean out.
Okay. What data exists? Because I think the lining is a relatively new technology. I mean, what's the lifespan on that? Do we know of any problems? Does the lining collapse off of the ID of the pipe and cause problems? Is there any data reliable that?
Well, it's a newer, it's been around for quite a while though.
Okay.
What it does is it actually makes a pipe inside your existing pipe that has equivalent strength of a new PVC pipe.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Hi, my name is Peggy Whitman. I'm here from my mother, Audrey Brown, from 700 South 56th Street. Now, the comment that was made about earlier about this money in this fund going elsewhere. You're saying that you can't use money for this to go to this, to go to that. Okay? They say the same thing about Social Security. And they do the same thing to that. They take money out of there and put it someplace else. Okay? I understand that $10 a month is not a lot to a lot of people. But when you got a single person living in a home, not making much on Social Security, barely be able to make her taxes half the time, make her bills, put food on her own table, that is a lot of money. Also putting a $1,500 tax assessment on her to fix this, that's going to be even more detrimental. So she got $40 extra a year to pay on the special project, plus to pay back that $1,500. Where are the retirees that don't make a lot on a pension or a lot on Social Security? Where are they coming up with this money? I mean, I understand you're trying to help the people, but where are they supposed to be coming up with this? Are they supposed to just turn around and say, well, I can't afford to sell my home? My mother's been in her home for 50 years. She moved in there when I was 2. That's been her home. You can't expect somebody to say, well, I can't afford this special assessment, I gotta move. That's not fair to them either. And now you're talking about putting a pipe inside of a pipe, now you're making that pipe even smaller.
Well, the pipes are 6 inches in diameter, and you need about a 4-inch.
Okay,
So
and how big is the pipe that you're sticking inside there?
it's 1/4 inch thick, so you'd have a 5.5-inch pipe. Now, I had the people on fixed income in mind when I came up with this. It's very unlikely that someone on a fixed income could afford to repair a lateral that failed. I hear about it every year when it happens. It's pretty devastating.
Yeah.
People can lose their house for that.
Right.
So this offers the $3,000 bill, but you've got 10 years to pay it. It's a burden when you don't have a lot of income, but it's a lot better than trying to come up with $12,000 or $10,000 to pay a plumber.
Right, but when you make enough to pay your taxes every year, your utilities, I mean, my mother, I mean, her water bill, she's in her home by herself, and her water bill is over $100.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, one person?
Well, remember, the other thing about this program is you don't ever have to have work done on the lateral. If you choose not to have it done.
But so she's paying the $10 every month, every quarter,
Yes.
and she's just supposed to say, okay, well, you can have my $10 every quarter, and I'll just sit here and whistle Dixie.
Well,
Because that's not an option. You have to pay that $10.
yes, and the reason for that is, I mean, the high flow is a citywide problem, and it has to be handled by the city. So there's going to be some cost in it. Whether we do it on the private property or we do it in the public system, there's going to be cost to it.
I mean, my mother doesn't have a basement, and her sewer's in her back hallway. She's, in her 50 years, she's been there. She's never had a backup in her house. Never. But you have to understand, you have to take in consideration the elderly that live in a city and what their income levels are to afford to pay this. Yeah, to you, $10 every quarter may not be a lot. Even to me, I work 2 jobs. Even to me, $10 a quarter would be a lot. Plus paying the special assessment when you guys come to decide to fix it.
No, that will never happen. You have the choice. If we wanted to do it, we could ask, and you can say you don't want it done.
Whether she says, yeah, go ahead and fix it, she's still got to pay the $10 every quarter.
Yes.
So that's still $40 that if she don't have it done, she's still got to pay that $40.
Yes.
And her water bill is going to keep going up instead of going down. And like I said, one person in a household paying well over $100 a month. Or is that right? Should think about it.
Cheryl Rassman, 1651 South 100th Street. Alderwoman Reinke had indicated that the $10 quarterly fee is not carved in stone. We all know that prices go up. What about the assessment of $3,000 or the $1,500? How can we be assured that that's not going to be going up when prices on everything else goes up after several years? Is there some kind of an assurance that that price of $3,000 and $1,500 will always be in effect, and for how long?
Well, since this is meant to be a 100-year program, I don't know that we could say it's never going to change. But I don't see anything changing within the first 5 years because it'll take longer than that to determine how this program's doing.
Just
So-
5 years, huh?
Well, 5 years before we know if we're charging too much or charging too little. And then I think it would be a very minor adjustment at that time. Because we do have actual prices that this work is being done at. That's figured into this. The only thing we have to do is monitor how many we're doing a year. If we have high prices one year, we could do less in 1 year and do more the next year if we get a better price. So we will be trying to use it as efficiently as possible.
But even if it's very efficient, you would probably never reduce the 3,000 and the 1,500, correct?
If we're doing 170 per year and the costs for doing that fell under what we're bringing in, we would have to reduce that.
Or just save that amount and use it for the next year?
We would probably save some of it, but you can't keep accumulating money in there. We don't want to hold a bunch of money and not be using it. So,
Is the city of West Dallas putting this in some kind of a special fund that you're earning interest on it? Are you investing the money or what?
I'm not sure about that. We can find that out for you.
I have one other question. Being a property owner of a duplex, a two-family duplex, each of my renters has their own water meter. Is each one of them going to be having the $10 added to each one? Or I, the property owner, am I going to get a special billing for the $10 each month? It's unfair for my two tenants to have to pay
Right.
$10 each.
We would have to have, it's per lateral. So if you have two laterals going to that property, then you would get charged twice. But if you have a single lateral, we'll have to make sure that it only gets billed once.
And how do we make sure about this?
I'll have to check our data and make sure that we have that information in our database.
No, I mean, who do I contact after this obviously it's going to go into effect. Who do we contact to make sure? I know I only have one lateral. The city knows I only have one lateral, but I have the 2 meters.
Right, and I just want to make sure that we can actually determine that through our database to make sure that we're only billing once for it.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hey there, Ryan Deal, 7241 West Greenfield Avenue. I'm actually a local business owner in the area, but I was interested possibly at getting a house in West Dallas. So I'm a little confused, and I had some questions for you. So you said that you will be repairing 140 laterals a year, something like that, correct?
About 170.
170.
Yeah.
So, but then you said just a couple people ago that you can choose to opt out of that?
You can choose to opt out of having the work done. We'll just go on to someone else.
We'll just go on to someone else. So I'm a little bad at math, so I'm a little confused. You said it's about 17,000 homes that are going to be taxed on this special $10 a quarter, and then it was roughly about 4,000 to fix the lateral. So why is there an assessment in the first place for the extra 1,500? Why don't you just cover the whole cost? Because it seems like with 17,000 and then the $50 a year, you would be about meeting costs. So why are we leaving money left over?
The prices that I've gotten quoted for the rehabilitations is between $45,000 to $5,000. So you take the $1,500 off that, you either have $3,000 or $3,500 that needs to be paid out of the fund.
From the fund?
Yes, so when you add all that up, it does come to the whole amount.
So you're saying that there will be no money left over in this fund at the end of every year? Basically, you will receive the...
Well, I mean, the money is continually coming in. So in a given year, we let one contract. Okay, so in that contract, we will limit that contract to our annual budget. We have to set some aside to account for any failures. So we're going to plan on 20 failures average. If there's more, we will hold off on doing some of the rehabs.
So then the surplus from that will be used to cover the failures, is what you're saying, additional to the...
There's an
170.
amount figured into that for failures,
Okay.
20 a year.
Okay.
If we start experiencing more, we'd have to adjust for that or figure out a way to do it cheaper.
Okay, and then, so what happens if this doesn't go through and we do nothing? I mean, are you implying that if we do nothing, eventually something significantly worse is gonna happen, we're gonna have a bigger fee to pay, or?
Well, if we're required to lower the flows and we're required to do it within our public system, I mean, that only gives us half the system to work with.
Sure.
We would have to put in some storage, you know, so when we have a rain, it goes off into a storage and then we can release it when it's drier. That gets very expensive. It's kind of like your deep tunnel, you know, for West Allis. So if we're required to lower it, we would have to figure out some way to do that.
So there would be some other fee then if this doesn't go through, there'd be something
We already
else.
have a fee for the public sewer. We would just have to increase that to do extra work.
Okay. And then I'm also concerned because obviously this is just for residential properties. What is the plan for them bringing this onto the business properties? Why aren't we looking
Well, the
at those
business
laterals?
properties, it'd be very difficult to come up with a uniform cost for. Currently, the way that businesses are handled is if we suspect there's excess flow coming out of their sewer, our plumbing inspector can order them to inspect their line and repair any defects that are in it.
Okay.
I don't think we would want to do that to residential.
Okay, so, but you're saying there's no plan on bringing this additional tax to businesses?
The businesses won't have the benefit of having any problems solved on their lateral.
Sure.
So,
So no, it wouldn't be coming to businesses?
not currently, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark McRoarty, 805 South 110th Street. Year and a half ago, we had a surprise in the basement doing laundry. Water came back up. And so, tried cleaning it out. We called plumber, came to clean the drain out. He could only get so far. He came back with the little roots. He went back in, measured it. It was the middle of the street, right about where the sewer line is. But he couldn't get to it. So started calling around here and there. I called the city. They had just checked the main and they said it's all clear. Okay, fine. So start calling up some major guys and getting estimates, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. I'm gonna have to pay that. Well, one of the plumbers up in West Bend said, I've got a guy, call him up. He came out with a camera, did the camera go through my line. I was surprised at how much roots were coming through each of the tiles where the connections were. Not much, but there was roots there. He got down to the same spot, but it was real murky. It looked like clay down there, and it was a slow drain. It still get through somewhat, but you had to wait for a couple hours. So he recommended another guy just to come out and clean it out. Now my bill is $1,800 for this all. That guy did get it out. He got it cleaned out, and the guy with the camera promised to come back. He came back, he took another check of it, and here, right before the T, going down to the sewer line, is a cracked pipe. It's not repaired yet, because I called the city up and found out that this guy dropped the video off here because West Allis was looking at this plan of $10 every quarter, $40 a year. When they told me that this is winter time, I'm gonna have to dig up my lateral to repair that one pipe, I gotta pay for the road work, because it's underneath the road. Asphalt in the winter time, another cement later on, you're looking at $14,000. At $40 a year, that's what, 300 years of paying that back? I can't wait till this plan goes into effect. I haven't had it fixed yet. I haven't had this fixed yet. It's still flowing good. I know I got that cracked pipe under the street. I know it's gonna collapse, and if it collapses right now, it's gonna be $12,000 out of my pocket. I didn't know I had a cracked pipe. You don't know what's down there. When this camera came down there and checked it out, I've got a dip where the previous owner put a tree. That got big, well, it dips down. That wasn't the cause of it. It was a cracked pipe out there. And now, this guy that came with the camera, he works with the relining. And he says, they're doing it in Kenosha, they're doing it here. People are paying for that. If this plan goes through, hopefully it will, because it will save us, the city. I've seen places where water going through. Had a relative in West Allis that they had a grant or something with Obama that around 76 in Oklahoma, and that's taken care of immensely over there. They're happy with the lining through there. So I'm all for this. I'm surprised. I haven't paid my $12,000 yet, so please get it through.
Thanks for your comments.
I'm Anthony Menzie. I live at 1639 South 100th Street. Just to clarify too, and it seems like a lot of people kind of reflected this. So in the past, from the people that have spoken, that said that they've spent 10 or 12,000, or one woman mentioned, I think 29,000 is what I heard. If there's a lateral that breaks after this is in effect, we'll only be paying the flat 3,000 at most.
That's correct.
Okay. Second thing, for me personally, $10 per quarter on a water bill is not something I would notice. Our budget is very tight, but I could afford that. I realistically could. I do sympathize with the people on Social Security. I run an assisted living facility, or I manage one, I should say. And usually it's $10 a year that they get an increase if they see an increase, so hopefully you guys get an increase. I would maybe strongly suggest if there's any laws, I don't know how the system all works, but that's why you're elected. If there's any way to prevent them from increasing the rates from $10 or the $3,000, set like a 10-year cap so they can't move it up, if that's possible. Not sure if it is. One other person mentioned, this is fresh off the heels of some road construction recently. We had a meeting over that, actually the last one this year, was nowhere near the turnout like this, but everybody that came, we kind of asked, was there anybody here who was for the project? And nobody was, but the project still went through. It's nice knowing this time that you guys hadn't made up your minds yet and that we had a say this time. I know the floor isn't for the road work, but I was a little disappointed to see the project go through when no people had spoken up for it at that time. Otherwise, going back with what I said earlier, if there's any way to set a cap on how much they can increase the rates to make it so that they can't, that I think would be maybe a compromise. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Barbara Hudak, and I represent 6 Points East condominiums on between 64th and 63rd of Greenfield. And the condominium building was built in 2008, and the first units were sold in the spring of 2010. I've been in my condo, it was just 4 years, October 1st. And my question is, how many laterals are there for the for the building?
Let me just say, condos are not included in this program.
I got a letter in the mail, and that's
we'll
why
have
I'm
to,
here.
we'll check on that, but condos are considered commercial.
Okay.
They won't be, it's like an apartment, it won't be included in this. Only 1, 2, and 3 family.
Yeah, I was going to say, because our water bill is part of our
Yeah.
association fee.
Yeah. So I'll check on that, make sure you.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Oming. I live at 1622 South 60th Street. I'm here representing myself and my sister Lorraine. Now, I assume that you work for the water department?
No, engineering department.
Excuse me?
Engineering department?
You're here for the engineering department.
Yes.
Okay. Well, just a couple years ago on 60th Street, they gave us a new street again. And we went to a meeting like this for our street, which came from the engineering department. And they told all of us at this meeting that they were going to widen our streets some more. But in the final, they actually shortened our street. And now we have all these new pipes in our street, so we don't have to worry about any pipes breaking in the middle of the street. Now, we've lived at this property for over 7 years. But however, I've lived on 60th Street over 22 years. And I've seen the water pipes in the street break and the water go up in the middle of the street and everything, and manholes and so on and so forth. And I've seen after they put a new street in that 2 weeks later they're tearing up the street here and tearing up the street there because of the water pipes. So I watched the construction of our street very well, so they really did a good job. Now, my concerns was like this other gentleman. Now, we contribute this $10 every quarter, and supposedly in the event that our lateral on our property would break, and it's our responsibility, we can borrow the money from the city, and then we can pay them back after a 10-year period of time. Is that correct?
No, it's not. If you have, but first of all, this is not about water. It's about the sanitary sewer. So it's the water coming out of your house, the drain pipes. If you have a failure on your lateral, you would have it fixed. The city would be involved in inspecting the work to get done, and you would not have to pay that contractor for the repair. The city would pay for the repair. You would get a set bill for $3,000, which you could choose to pay on a 10-year plan.
Okay, well, wouldn't this be something that our insurance company would pay? I mean, I know when the lateral breaks on our property, which I've already had at one of my properties that I owned, where the water came and broke, the water pipe broke inside my property and in between the front yard. And my insurance company paid $2,400 to the plumber to fix. So wouldn't this be something that our insurance company, our homeowners insurance would pay if we had backup in our houses also?
If you have sewer backup coverage on your insurance, it pays for damages in your basement from the water that gets backed up. If you have insurance coverage for the pipe, which almost nobody has, they would pay for a repair. But the insurance is probably more than $40 a year. And they only come in and they repair where it's broken.
Right.
They don't do anything with the rest of the pipe.
Correct.
So it does nothing for the water in the system. Under this program, we'd fix the pipe and rehab the rest of the pipe, so you would have a new lateral.
Okay, well, I don't know if these people know this, but there's a solution that you can put in your drain each year to make sure that you kill all those roots from destroying your pipe too. But like this other gentleman said, now how do we know that this funds will only go towards this water system? I mean, medical doctors put in all this funds for malpractice for the state, and Jim Doyle took that money and paid his little people that voted for him. And now the taxpayers had to pay all that money back. And you know, there's misappropriate of funds periodically, or they take money from this one or that one and so on and so forth. So what guarantee do we have that this money isn't going to be used for something else? And then what guarantee do we have that the money that we contribute would even help our situation and be deducted from our property for this repair?
Well, if the program's in place, the The $10 per quarter is going to go into the private sanitary fund. All the projects will be paid for out of that. There's nothing else that gets paid out of that except for some time that employees spend on it, on that project. So it can be controlled very easy because it is its own fund. And you could...
Yeah, well, tell that all to the medical doctors, then they said theirs was only for that fund too.
Well, if somebody did that here, they'd probably get fired. So.
Well, nobody fired our ex-governor.
He didn't work for the city.
Yeah.
So all we can say is that we have funds similar to this, and the funds are restricted to what they are collected for.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, my name's Deborah Jensen. I live at 2232 South 82nd Street, and I would like to say that I am in favor of this fee. As a homeowner, I do know I have a responsibility to take care of the lateral that's underground, but because it's underground, I don't look at it. It's not giving me problems. So therefore, I've never done anything to it. I've taken care of my windows. I know you said you needed to get new windows. I did too. I could see them. I could feel the problem. And new roofs. And you take care of the things that you see, but you don't take care of what's underground, out of sight, out of mind. And Mr. Birch, if I heard you, you were saying that even though I may not be having a backup in my basement, I could have a lot of water that leaks into my laterals and can cause problems for other homes.
It's usually the person downstream that gets the impact of all the leaking water.
Okay. So as a homeowner, I should be responsible and should be taking care of my lateral. And since many of us are not looking at what's out of sight and out of mind, and the city needs to address all that extra water, you're making a proposal that to me at $40 a year sounds like a really good deal to take care of a problem that's citywide. So thank you very much for the proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Bill Sargent, 1022 South 119th Street. First of all, I've got to give you guys a lot of credit here tonight. This is about as exciting as watching Windows Vista start up. This is hard work, and I know you're trying to do the right thing here. And, you know, this is the kind of issue that government was designed for. This is what I pay taxes for, to take care of this kind of thing. This isn't studying cow farts. It's not funding a trolley that runs around in a circle on a track, you know, or any of that kind of stuff. This is taking care of our homes and our infrastructure and the important stuff. And I appreciate that. And at the same time, my heart goes out to everybody here because it's not an easy time right now financially. Everybody's getting hit, and $40 is $40 whether you're making $5,000 or you're making $500,000. It's still $40. And right now, at least 50% of our income goes to the government. And that's a hard thing to take when the government wants a little bit more and wants a little bit more and wants a little bit more. But when it's for the right things, it's an important thing. Now, MMSD, a lot of us could do about an hour and a half on MMSD. And they're asking us to jump through a hoop to accommodate them. I'd like to see them jump through a few hoops to accommodate a lot of people here in Milwaukee County. But I would ask you folks to be putting the screws to those guys to ask what they're doing to fix their problem on their end, okay? That's important, because we're paying taxes to those guys too. When it gets right down to it, we're talking about less than the cost of a pack of cigarettes per month in order to help alleviate the possibility of our basements flooding. Okay? And if you've been noticed anything about the weather patterns in the last 5, 6 years, there have been a lot of rainstorms that tend to come over and set on one area and stay there a very long time. We had one here in Milwaukee on the northeast side, I think it was probably about 5, 6 years ago, something like that. And it just dumped an enormous amount of rain on that one place. Now, so if this will help alleviate the problem of our homes flooding, I'm all for this because this is what we've got you guys for. And I totally support it. I'm sorry that it's costing us money, and we know that it's never going to go away. Once we have this assessment, it's permanent. And it always goes up and it never goes down. We all know that. You know, but it is an important thing that you guys take care of business when it comes to the roads, the sewers, and all the stuff that we pay our taxes for. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Marsh, 2467 South 76th Street. I disagree with the other people who support it. I, for one, as a homeowner and a taxpayer and a City of West Allis resident, do not support this. We have been at our location for over 12 years as homeowners, and our residential location has never had a sewer backup. I'm not saying I'm God, and not saying it never could, but I'm just letting you know this is for us personally. We've never had a sewer pipe failure. MMSD has raised the rates on our quarterly water bill fairly consistently. How many of you actually look at the back page of your water bills? You'll see the increases. That other gentleman is right. I have not seen a decrease, not once. If this is passed, I, for one, would like to see the commercial property, and condominium owners are also taxpayers and residential people. They should be included in this. Don't just sock it to us as homeowners. I mean, they should also be charged this proposed fee to help alleviate and ease the burden to the rest of the residential homeowners. And during the time that we have been homeowners and taxpayer, our water bill is more than doubled. And we've been in their place for 12 years. I know people, neighbors of ours that have been senior citizens, they've been there more than 50 years. So again, my personal opinion, I oppose this proposed $10 quarter fee, which adds up to $40 a year, which I don't know everybody's situation. For you, that may not be a lot. For me, that's filling up my gas tank. You go to a doctor specialist, that's your copay every time you set foot in that doctor's office. We can't afford that, any more increases or fees. I don't want to pay for everybody else's. If it hits us, let the chips fall where they may. And the high price of the $1,500 for the lateral rehabilitation or the $3,000 for emergency repair, that's a lot of money. Again, there are people that are unemployed. Some are on Social Security. People have family and kids to support. How do you want to make this city an attractive place to live? You're saying it may take 100 years or 25 years down the road. Let me tell you this, in 25 years, I'll be retiring. If you keep raising the rates and the fees, you're trying to encourage people to stay in West Allis. You want to make this a great place to live? Raising fees and charging us more money isn't the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Gary Williams, 2908 South 72nd. I came here to complain about it, but I changed my attitude after hearing a lot of the people here. But they're not realizing how much it will cost them to fix a lateral, depending on which way it goes. There's two different ways you can fix a lateral. You can tear up your property and have all new piping put in, or you can have a lateral put in where they take a liquid fiberglass and they shoot it through your system and they blow it up and put it against the pipes. It's about a 1/4 inch round after it's done. It's solid and it should not cave in. It should last 50 to 100 more years. But all that said and done, you also got to realize the 8 to 10 grand that will cost you if you have to do that on your own. It's not a price that they're just telling you. That is a fact. I'm going through this right now looking at a friend of mine, and it's costing him 8 to 10 grand. And then the only question I have for the engineer here is, when you do that lateral, is there any way they can look at going into the house where they got the clean out with that same system, because you don't have to go into the house to do it. You can do it through the outside, depending which way you
Right.
go through to do it.
The typical way that we've had it done is from the main, they shoot it in. Normally, they would want to put a clean out right outside of the house. But if you were willing to let them in to access your clean out in the basement, all they have to do is get a camera in there. And you could have it lined to that. And it would probably cost slightly less because they wouldn't have to install a clean out. So.
But also with the laterals, what people aren't understanding, they need to talk to these engineers and trying to get a different type of system in there, because to my knowledge, the system that the flowing is right now is Milwaukee sewers flow into WESTALLIE sewers, or vice versa. So you got all these sewer systems, large parts of them going together, which I know what we're not here for. We're here for the laterals. But with the rainwaters going into the laterals, plus the rainwaters from the streets and everywhere else, we're all getting screwed. And we're all not going to be able to make it if we sit there and not accept some of this. We need to accept some. I mean, it is our properties. It's not their properties. They're giving us a cheaper solution. I'm hoping it's a cheaper solution. Now, the next question is, on this $40 a year, or whatever, yeah, $40 a year, can that be like, okay, say us people in here, you for some reason, you got us people in here for a reason, first. So being that we're the first ones in here, can you guarantee these people that $40, no way of going up in cost, and then as you go on through the rest of the people, then your costs go up, not with us? Think about it. Think about it. Because you're sitting there pushing us to get it, but these other people haven't even heard about it yet. My neighbors haven't heard about this yet. So, you're looking at a handful of people, and you're telling them it's only $40 now, but it may go up. And it may not go up. We don't know.
Right.
But as you go on, if the costs go up, why should we have to take that bite in the cost if we already done the repairs? That don't make sense to me, to keep adding our costs up when we've already took our bite of the game.
Well, the thing is that everybody would be in it at once.
So
So there is nobody that's not in it.
Well, how many people know about this now then? Because my neighbors don't know about it.
They would know about it if it came on their water bill.
Yeah,
So
but that's not very fair to do it that way, but,
Well, we sent out a notice to every property owner.
Okay.
So they should know, they just chose not to come.
Okay. Well, I talked to a few of them. They said they didn't get no notice, so I'm just saying what they said. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bernie Gonzalez, 726 South 111th Street. I'd like to say hi to my neighbor, Mr. Barzak. I had a question. I know a lot of people are permanent, been residents for many, many years, but what if you are in the process or you decide to sell your house? Would it be advantageous to have your lateral done because it would add value to the resale of the house, or would your realtor would know about this and would recommend having you done before you sell the house, or were you required as a purchaser of a house to have that done before the sale is complete?
Right now, we don't have any requirements to have the work done. And I would think that maybe in the future, the mortgage companies or buyers of houses, if they're buying an older home, they would require that as part of the sale, just for their own peace of mind. But it shouldn't make any difference here, because if it failed a year after they bought your house, they get the same deal. They're getting a reduced cost fix for that pipe. So, if you chose to inspect it to see if it's in good shape.
So what I want to make sure is that if by some chance that I would sell my property, somebody would notify whether the city of Milwaukee or the realtor representing selling the house, or or showing the house knows about the statute of the, if it's passed, that a lateral pipe system is required in the city of West City, West Dallas, that they would enforce the seller to have this done before a deal of the price would be completed.
Well, you could have it inspected, but that doesn't guarantee that it would be rehabbed, because if it's in halfway decent shape, we wouldn't want to do that one.
Okay.
We want to get the ones that are leaking. We can't afford to fix the ones that are pretty good, because we need to do those years down the line when they begin to be a problem.
All right.
So, because we can only get 1% a year, we want to get the worst ones.
All right. So as long as I know that there's not going to be anything foreseeable in the future of notification to any prospect, you know, to the real estate companies, that this is mandatory now by the city of West Dallas.
It's not mandatory, so
Okay.
I mean.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Holly Kelly. I own 3 properties, duplexes in West Dallas, and we've had them about 25, 27 years.
Can you give us the addresses of those, please?
All of them?
Well, one for our record,
Just,
at least.
okay.
Your favorite one.
2039 South 68th.
All right, thank you.
We had a lateral failure about 5 years ago, and it was about $5,000 to fix. It was not cheap. My issue is that West Dallas has come up with so many special assessments that it's getting to be overwhelming. First it's the alleys, and then after the alleys, then it's the front road. And the special little treat that we got was a letter a couple of years ago that landlords have to register for each property that they own to the tune, I think it was like $50 or $60. And I really enjoyed that one. But my other issue is the $40 to us isn't that much. It is to some people, and I respect that. The problem is when do these projects stop? What's going to be the next fund that you need for the good of society? And how much is that going to cost? Without any caps, we have no reassurances that this is going to end.
Well, this particular project are you talking about, or future projects?
In general, I'm talking about this project as far as not having a cap, that's number one, and other projects that might come up in the future. I don't know, maybe it's helping people put on a new roof. I don't know.
The reason that this is a city issue is everybody's laterals flow into the city system, and it's causing a problem with our system. So we could require everybody to inspect their lateral and fix it like we would do for commercial, but that would be very unpopular, and most laterals would need fixing. So you could be spending thousands of dollars doing that. That would solve our problem. But it's not a fair solution. So
yeah, it really doesn't seem fair to in some perspectives.
Right.
You know, I think if you would levy a cap, like the one fellow said, for 10 years or 15 years, something, I don't know that I'm going to have all my properties 5 years from now. And then another point, since nobody else is doing this in the state, this sounds more like a beta testing project for the state. And maybe because it is a beta testing project, it should go to referendum.
Well, actually, MMSD has been doing the beta testing. They are giving money to all the municipalities to go after water on private property. We're currently using that water to install sump pumps in homes that don't have them.
Oh yes, I almost forgot. You couldn't put a sump pump into one of our duplexes.
We can't put them in if there are no existing drains.
Correct.
Right.
And there wasn't. But we got charged for it anyway, even though we'll never use it.
What you were charged for was a storm lateral, which it's a standard practice when a road is reconstructed, we provide a lateral for future use where you could hook up your downspouts, or if you had a yard drain, you could connect that to it, any clear water.
Right.
So.
But there is none. Just so you know that.
Not yet, but maybe there is in the future.
I don't know what future you're looking at, but it's not mine. And this is what I'm talking about, all these little hidden things that keep popping up that we don't find out about it until it's too late. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Teagues. Address is 2521 South 98th Street in West Dallas. My questions are more associated towards the engineering portion of the failures. Now, I understand the lateral basically runs from the house to somewhere in the street, correct?
To the connection at the main. The main's usually in the center of the street.
Center of the street. So I'm responsible from, again, my house to that connection point in the center of the street.
Yeah.
And I understand that the laterals will fail eventually just due to age deterioration, so forth and so on. But the other factor that affects them is the vegetation, is the tree roots and so forth and so on. My concern is as the gentleman that was somewhere on the west side of West Dallas on 111th or 108th, he talked about the failure at the T-point of the lateral going into the main sewer system. The problem that I see is that on my property, I have no trees on my property, except for the one tree that was put between the sidewalk and the curb by the city, that's owned by the city. So if the failure happens on the opposite side of the sidewalk, which is still because of the tree that's caught between the sidewalk and the curb, who is responsible for that failure?
Well, first of all, the tree does not cause the pipe to fail.
Well, the roots would go into it.
The pipe has to fail to let the roots get in. So your pipe is already leaking, that attracts the roots in. It's just a sign that your pipe is failing. And they will accelerate that if you don't clean them out, because they can break the joints further. But they don't cause the pipe to fail originally. The pipe has to begin leaking at the joint. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg.
It does accelerate it, so now we're talking about
it can accelerate it, yeah.
Okay, so there's no responsibility on the city's portion then because they planted the tree too close to the lateral.
Well, since the trees pretty much cover almost edge to edge down the streets, you couldn't get out of the root system, I don't think.
Well, they're putting in the columnar type trees nowadays, so it only has about a 15-foot span left to right. So if the tree would have been positioned away from my lateral, I wouldn't have had that. The problem would have had a longer longevity, let's put it that way.
It's hard to say, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. My name is Alan Schimmel. Probably heard that name before. I live at 2320 and 2322 South 95th Street. And I have a couple of things here. One is, as long as it's on my mind, this lady said that she checked at her water bill. She couldn't figure out why her water bill almost doubled. I know this happened a couple years ago, but I checked mine out too. Years ago, I used to bring my cans, my paper, my cardboard, Junkie Joe over here in West Dallas Salvage, and I got paid for it. Then all of a sudden, Junkie Joe wouldn't take it anymore, and I put it on my street or something like that, and they picked up, and it didn't cost me anything, or I didn't make anything. Now, they put this waste management on my water bill. Now, I pay them to take care of my stuff, I don't know what waste management has to do with the water bill, number one. Maybe I figured that maybe they didn't want to put it on the property tax. I'll leave that one, okay. I don't know if it.
Well, I guess it probably shouldn't be called a water bill because it has all the utilities on it.
Well, I guess that's my point. Why didn't they put some of this stuff on your property taxes where people have noticed? I don't think a lot of people know that waste management is on your water bill, and why it's on there, I don't know. Then the second thing is, or just at least one more thing, are there other sources besides the laterals that go into this system?
Other sources?
Rain gutters,
No.
sump pumps?
No, we've done testing all around town looking for that. We send smoke down the sewer, and it comes up. If something's connected, the smoke will come out of it, and we couldn't find any illegal connections. We found some big leaks, but we didn't find any illegal connections.
I don't know, well, I guess that's about it then. Because I know the city, they went, a while back, I've had neighbors complain that the city came and told them they had to put downspouts on their garage. Another complained that they had to put some plants in front of their place, and other people said that the city came around and told them that garbage carts, and other people came around and told them they had to paint their garage. And I guess that's just one of the things where, you know, they just keep telling you to do something and do something, but it doesn't seem like you're going anywhere. And it just costs you a lot of money.
Yeah.
I guess that's it.
Thanks for your comments. Is there anybody else that has questions or comments on the public hearing this evening?
Okay, I'm Gina Barney. My address is 1334 South 76th Street. And I have a couple questions. One, what happens, like, after Todd was talking about his mom's house and how she had problems after the construction of the road? Now, I've lived in my house for 22 years, and I've never had a backup. And I personally feel like years ago, people made things better, and I'd put my lateral up against a new one any day, just like my house. But I have no objection to paying that $40 because if anything did happen, I certainly don't want to pay what these other people say they paid. But now what happens if I live on 76th Street and they're doing that, all this construction? What happens if it does happen and I have to go and get a plumber and get it all fixed and whatever, and it is from the construction? Do I get reimbursed for my fee for the plumber and the camera person and that?
If we found a reason for a break that wasn't just your aging lateral failed, you wouldn't have to pay. So
Okay.
we can pay for it from the construction or from whatever damage.
I'm kind of nervous to hear that because now we've been having all this rain. And I'm thinking, man, is this going to all clog my stuff where I've never, ever had a problem?
On any failure, we have an inspector out there. When the plumber digs down to that pipe, we look to see first where it is, because if it's on the connection itself, we pay for that as part of the public system. And if it was caused by, you know, the water main placement or a storm sewer, that's going to be covered. You wouldn't have any cost on that.
Okay, so does an inspector come first? Or do we get like a plumber and the camera person and stuff first?
You get the plumber. If you have a backup, you'd have to call in someone to try to clear the line. If they find out it's collapsed, we watch the plumber that you hire dig it to see what happened there. If it's caused by something other than just your pipe failing, we can go back and pay for it by whatever caused it.
Okay, so like then I would get reimbursed for my plumber fee and my camera fee?
In that case,
is what I'm
yes.
asking. If it was
yes,
like due to
that's-
the construction
That's
or something
typically
like
the way
that.
that we handle that, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a comment rather than a question. I've
Sorry,
been-
can we have your name and address real quick?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My name is Janice Burke, 2105 South 110th Street. I've been in my house for 40 years, 43 years. When we first bought the house, it was like 22, 23 years old. Told us they'd had water in the basement 3 times in that whole period of time. Okay, no problem. Within the next year, we had water in our basement, like a foot deep, more than 3 times. From then on, we constantly had water. Back in '97, when we had the biggest floods, the big ones, I had 36 to 48 inches of water in my basement, depending where it was measured. Okay, in that section, they have done a lot of help to try to alleviate the water, which they had accomplished that at this particular point. So over the last 5 years, I have not had water. Prior to that, I was having water. You could count on it 5, 6 times a year. Once in a while, if you were lucky, it may be twice. So I can appreciate the fact that we're working on something that's not going to be just affecting a person here and a person there, but we're working on a problem that's going to be affecting people all over our city, as well as our surrounding cities. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have comments or questions on the public hearing this evening?
Rose Mattis, 1103 South 57th Street. I've heard both sides tonight, and I think it's almost even the way people think. And my question is, if you ever discussed or considered putting this proposal to a referendum?
We discussed that, and on a referendum, usually things get described in about 2 sentences. So it'd be kind of hard to describe a program like this so people could understand it and intelligently vote on it from 2 sentences.
You could do it in a mailing, but I think because every homeowner is going to be affected by this decision, that we should all have the opportunity to come out and vote our opinion.
And in the mailings that went out, there was a phone number that you could leave a comment. There's an email address. We only got maybe a little over 100 comments out of 17,000.
But that doesn't mean that they're not going to go out and vote. And if they're coming out to vote anyway, and if it was on a referendum, then they would see that too. And people do watch. People watch on TV. They just don't leave comments.
I was only bringing up the danger of a referendum where people may vote on it, but they don't really understand what it means if it's only described on that ballot.
Well, you could put out a mailing, and I think most of the people in West are pretty intelligent, and we would read it and be able to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have comments, questions?
Hi, Stephanie Panosian. My address is 1534 South 76th Street. And I just wanted to piggyback on her comments that this doesn't seem that well planned out, and it's really hard to have an opinion on something without knowing all the facts. Good thing Alderman Ranky filled us in on the facts that the price could go up. None of us would know that, so it's very hard to give your opinion on something without having all of the facts. And I'll just email the rest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi there, Dave Guyette, 2022 South 97th Street. I missed the first part of the discussion, but wondering if you've addressed Palmer valves at all and what effect those have on stormwater infiltration, and if you could maybe just relay your opinion.
Yeah, the Palmer valve is just a little flapper valve that opens when the water from your foundation drains drain to your floor drain. And it's supposed to close in case there was a sewer backup.
None of them work.
Doesn't go back in there.
Right. No, I'm a plumber, so I understand how they work,
okay.
but I've
Well-
cleaned several sewers in West Allis, and sewers that are still served by a Palmer valve. I mean, I've seen an influx of water that's unbelievable compared to
Yeah, and-
what's coming in from like roots penetrating clay sewers.
Well,
Is that being addressed at all?
that is being addressed. We're using all the money that we get from MMSD to install sump pumps.
Okay.
So separate program right now, and we'll do that until they stop sending us money, so.
Okay. And that's being pursued as aggressively as this is?
We
'Cause
get
I
it-
see that as being much more of a contributor to
Yes,
stormwater
yeah,
infiltration
we-
than cracked sewers are.
We get about $250,000 a year
Okay.
towards doing that, so.
Okay. I haven't heard anything about that program.
We've been following construction projects, trying to hit the areas where we have the highest flow with that,
Okay.
so.
Do you know what percentage of the city is still without a traditional sump crock and pump?
My
Discharging a
guess,
grade.
I would guess about 40 to 50%. So, a lot of the homes built before '54 have had sump pumps put in, so otherwise, you know, most of the homes were built without a sump pump.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Do we have anybody else this evening with comments? Questions? Sure. Nah, we know you, I think. Gary, it's Gary Williams, right? Yeah, all right.
I noticed you guys are talking about the sump pump situation, but with the sump pump, I'm on the border of Milwaukee and West Allis. And we have a lot of drainage trouble because Milwaukee's higher and West Allis is lower. But people are starting to have sewer systems put in at the bottom of the street, and they're using that to drain. Now, is that going into the same sewer system, or what is that going into that they can do that?
you mean like a storm system?
Yeah,
We have separate storm sewers, so it doesn't go into the sanitary,
okay.
so.
And one other thing I wanted to mention is there are insurance programs out there. Is there any way that if you're going to do this type of programming, can't you find out about insurance companies that you can at least let the people know about? They are out there. I mean,
We know that there's an insurance that you can purchase for $100
yeah,
a year.
because Milwaukee's doing it.
Yeah.
They just got
But-
57,000 for it.
The insurance wouldn't solve our problem of high flows, because
No, no,
it,
I'm sorry, rephrase that. It's for the people, for their laterals, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken.
yeah, but what they would do is they fix a lateral that's broken, and they just fix the spot that's broken.
Oh, okay.
We have 20 break a year, so they'll fix 20 breaks. They didn't do anything to lower our flows, because they didn't seal up any existing laterals, and they didn't fix the whole lateral. So we would still have the same problem we have now.
Okay, that's all I had then. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, does anybody else have any questions?
I was talking before, Al Marsh from 2467 South 76. Now, is it most of the water from the rain, the downpour of the rain, and not from, I mean, how much water do I send from my house? It's very minimal, very minimal.
Right. Most of the water, I mean, when they measure water, it's during a wet weather event. That's when they care about how much water's coming in.
Yes.
You couldn't use enough water to impact our sewers.
Yeah, I know.
But the sewers leak so much, when the ground gets saturated and the groundwater is high, that water is going into those pipes like it's a French drain. So it does get a substantial amount of water in there.
Yeah. All right, I just think it's minimal from our houses, at least mine.
Right.
Okay, if there's nobody else, we will close the public hearing. And I want to just thank everybody who's still here for being here, and thank everybody who had comments and questions. I hope we gave you as much information as you were hoping to get. And if you have afterthoughts as you leave, as you're driving home, feel free to reach out to, excuse me, to your council member or the engineering department, and we'll try to get you any additional answers that we can. So thank you so much. Yeah. Alderman Barzak?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
We're all for that. Let's be in a 5-minute recess.